Greetings, foragers. I'm wondering if you have time to listen to me talk about a Jesus. No, I'm not. I'm wondering if you would like to hear me wax lyrical about this wonderful edible weed behind me that I am cultivating in my garden called prickly lettuce. So let's talk about the classification, the taxonomy of this prickly lettuce plant. Well, firstly, it's from the Asteraceae family, which is the daisy sunflower family, in which there is 1900 genera of plants. It is from the tribe Citroriae, which is the same tribe as dandelion. And it's from the genus Lactuca. The closest relative is the Lactuca sativa, which is the common cultivated lettuce. This species is called serriola. So this plant is Lactuca serriola. There's about 100 species of Lactuca. It's also known as wild lettuce, especially in the United States. Bitter lettuce, opium lettuce for its analgesic medicinal properties, and compass plant as well. It is an annual or biennial. It's from Asia, Eurasia, and Africa. Its origin. Let's talk about how to identify these plants. It's very easy when you know how. The first thing to note is that they grow on these very long stems. They are said to grow to 2 meters. I have one here well over 2 meters, so I'm very chuffed with that. Another striking feature of these plants, which you will learn if you haven't already learned to recognize very, very clearly, is that the leaves are very flat. They sit on sort of a plane in 2 dimensions, whereas the sow thistle tends to sit over 3 dimensions. So this one's known as the compass plant, and I sort of think of it like semaphore, like these very sort of flat paddles of leaf that sit on different angles. That is a passion fruit. That has nothing to do with this plant. You will notice that, true to the name, the stems are often quite seriously prickly, but also that many of them are not. They can be quite smooth also, like this. The leaf margins are generally finely prickled, and most importantly, the backside of the leaves have a strong line of prickles in the central vein. Now this is very important in differentiating this plant from possible lookalikes such as the sow thistle. A feature that the prickly lettuce has in common with the sonchus plants or the sow thistle is that the leaves clasp the stems like this. These things are called auricles. They're like ears that clasp the stem. They have those on most leaves, whereas the sow thistle doesn't have them on most leaves. In fact, most leaves don't have this feature. Like the sow thistle, the prickly lettuce contains a milky sap. But the sap of the prickly lettuce has some amazing medicinal properties that we'll talk about a bit later. So I have just picked some leaves here for some close examination. As you can see here, we have the lanceolate leaves that are just long, thin, sword-like things. And then we have these deeply lobed margin ones. It's really important to develop your sense of colour in identifying plants. So the colour of the prickly lettuce leaves are known as glaucous, Glaucous. And glaucous means a grey, blue, green sort of colour. And they're also kind of waxy, sort of, like they're kind of matte rather than glossy in a way. So to make a colour comparison, I've got 3 volunteers here This is this one here, for example, is Greek basil, which you can see is a very yellowy light green compared with the blue-green of the prickly lettuce. It's pretty clear, isn't it? Here is a kaffir lime leaf. It's a darker green, but it is still a yellowy dark green compared with the prickly lettuce. And it also has a glossy surface texture compared with the prickly lettuce. That's another one here we have is the cat's ears, also a more yellow forest green as compared to the prickly lettuce. The cat's ears is hairy on the leaf body, and the prickly lettuce is not hairy. It is glabrous, meaning not hairy. So don't forget that there's a lot of variation in leaf shape on this plant within a single plant and between plants, and certainly between species. And these species also can cross-pollinate and give rise to presentations that are quite variable in their morphology and their appearance. Just another quick thought about plant identification and how our minds work is the idea of making associations. So two thoughts I have on this one are this shaped leaf, these lobed ones, have heads that remind me of antique palisade fences. And I'll put a photograph up of that and you can see if I'm right or if I'm right. And another association I make here with these, the veinage on these leaves is that they remind me of crazy paving. So they're quite, they stand out quite white on both the backs of the leaves, especially the backs of the leaves, but also the fronts. And they form these roughly hexagonal sort of shapes. And it's quite striking about the prickly lettuce, I think. The seed heads of the prickly lettuce are in multiple florets and will ultimately show some yellow to purplish yellow flowers, which then produce airborne seeds. There was some airborne seeds on this earlier today, but they have actually blown away in the wind already. If you are trying to cultivate these plants in your garden rather than just forage them, it can be a good thing to remove the lower leaves because they are subject to a white mildew that can destroy the plant, as the Sonchus plants are as well. And they're good to stake because they're very fally over sort of plants, and they grow very tall, but often they can be blown over by the wind. Okay, so as a food you can eat this plant raw or cooked. It's a very bitter green, and the smaller leaves on younger plants are perhaps favourable. The roots can be used as a coffee substitute, as can plants like dandelion. You can drink it as a tea. This plant is high in vitamins A, B, C and calcium and magnesium, among other minerals. Prickly lettuce has some very important medicinal uses owing to its milky sap or latex, which contains Lactucarium, which is most importantly an analgesic or a pain relieving set of compounds and a sedative. So it's tranquilizing, it's soothing for people with insomnia or anxiety and restlessness. It's also said to relax sexual desire, and it may be mildly euphoric. Owing to its lactucarium compounds, it's known as lettuce opium. Now, this is a bit misleading in that lactucarium is not opioid. It actually, these compounds actually work on relaxing the nervous system in another way. There are many ways of preparing this plant to get to these medicines. You can make tinctures and extracts and concentrates and salves and syrups, things like that. You can see my next video. I'll show you how to extract the medicine from this plant. The plant has also been used for urinary tract infections, gastrointestinal problems, coughs, and especially whooping cough. Thank you for listening to me warble on about the wonderful pericoli lettuce. Please subscribe to see my next video, which will be about how to extract the Lactucarium from this plant for medicinal use. Until then, happy foraging!